My name is Barbara. I'm 35, an architect, a mother of two, and I never really believed in anything supernatural. Until that rainy Thursday in March, when everything changed. What I'm about to tell you still haunts me every night, not out of fear, but because of the impossible beauty of what I saw. Before that day, I was like most people, rushing around, worried about deadlines, bills, school meetings, architectural projects that had to be delivered. Life was this constant race, this feeling of always being late, always owing something to someone. I thought I knew reality, that I understood how the world worked. How naive I was. The last thing I remember before everything went dark was the sharp screech of tires on the wet asphalt. I was coming back from a client meeting, running late to pick up the kids from school, and the traffic was a nightmare because of the rain. I remember glancing at my phone when a notification popped up, just for a second, maybe two. When I looked up again, the truck was there, jackknifed across the road. There was no time to think, only to react. I yanked the wheel to the left, but the road was slick. The car spun, skidded, and then came the impact. Twisting metal, glass exploding into a million shimmering fragments. And a searing pain that shot through my chest like an icy bolt of lightning, stealing all the air from my lungs. Then silence. But it wasn't an ordinary silence. It was a living, pulsing silence, as thick as velvet, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. When I opened my eyes, or whatever I opened at that moment, I was no longer in the car. I was floating. I was floating about 10 feet above the accident scene, watching everything with a surreal clarity, as if every detail was being recorded in high definition onto my consciousness. I saw my body trapped in the mangled wreckage of the car, the driver's door completely crushed. Shattered glass on the wet ground reflected the red and blue flashing lights of the ambulances that had already arrived. There was blood. A lot of it, running down the side of my face, staining my white work blouse. But the most disturbing thing was watching the paramedics working frantically on that body. My body cutting the seatbelt, immobilizing my neck. Shouting commands to each other, and feeling absolutely nothing. No pain, no fear, no despair. Just a detached curiosity, as if I were watching a movie about someone else's life. I tried to scream, to tell them I was okay, that I was up here, but I had no voice. I tried to float down, to touch someone, to do anything to get their attention, but I had no control over my movements. I was like a disconnected witness to my own death, floating in a parallel dimension where I could see and hear everything, but couldn't interact. I heard one of the paramedics, a tall man in a blue uniform, his voice urgent. "We're losing her. No pulse. Starting CPR." The red digital clock on the ambulance, which I could see perfectly from my vantage point, read 6:47 p.m. That's when I noticed the shift. The sound of the sirens, the shouts, the rain hitting the asphalt, it all began to fade, as if someone was gradually turning down the volume of the world. A feeling of absolute lightness took over, as if a tremendous weight I'd been carrying my whole life without knowing it, the weight of the body, of gravity, of worries, had been lifted. In front of me, something completely indescribable appeared. They call it a tunnel, but that word does it no justice. It was a kind of corridor of living light, pulsing and breathing like a conscious organism. The walls were made of something like liquid light, moving in impossible geometric patterns, fractals of incomprehensible beauty, colors I've never seen on Earth, shades that don't exist in our visible spectrum danced around me. There were purples deeper than any violet golds, that shone with an intensity that should have been blinding, but instead felt like a caress. I felt myself being drawn forward by a gentle yet irresistible force, like a soft current you can't fight. I wasn't scared. I felt anticipation, curiosity, a deep, inexplicable feeling of returning home after a very, very long journey, as if my whole life on Earth had been just a brief exile. As I moved through the tunnel, I began to sense other presences. Luminous silhouettes accompanying me, emanating love and acceptance. Some felt familiar, though I couldn't clearly identify them. It was like recognizing someone not by their face, but by their essence, their unique energy. At the end of the tunnel, there was a light. Not a blinding, painful light, but a light that embraces you, that knows every part of you, that loves you unconditionally. And within this light, more defined presences began to form. I can't say they were people, exactly, but I recognized them instantly. My grandmother Elena, who passed away from cancer when I was just 12, was there. It wasn't her physical form, worn down by her illness, but something much more real, her pure essence. She radiated that warm love I remembered from childhood, spending afternoons in her kitchen, learning to bake cornbread. Barbara, my dear girl, the words weren't heard with ears, but understood with something much deeper, as if communication happened directly from consciousness to consciousness. It's not your time yet. You have important work to do. Your children still need you. There are lives you will touch, lives you will change. I tried to argue, to explain that I wanted to stay. The peace I felt there was so complete, so absolute, so different from anything I had ever experienced, that the idea of returning to the pain, the chaos, the crushing weight of physical existence seemed unbearable. But she just smiled, though she didn't have a traditional face. I knew with absolute certainty that she was smiling. Then something truly extraordinary happened. My entire life unfolded before me, not chronologically, but all at once, a multi-dimensional tapestry of experiences. I wasn't just watching a movie of my life. I was reliving every moment, but from a completely different perspective. I felt what other people had felt because of my actions, my words, even my thoughts. That time I was impatient with a young waitress because I was having a bad day. I felt her deep sadness, the burning humiliation. I felt her holding back tears as she served other tables. but I also saw the good. The genuine smile and good afternoon I gave a homeless man on a cold morning. I felt how it changed his entire day. How he felt seen, how that small gesture of humanity stopped him from giving up. Each small act of kindness created ripples that spread far beyond the initial moment. There was no judgment in this process, only profound, compassionate understanding. I was seeing my life through the eyes of unconditional love. I saw my children, 7-year-old Pedro learning to read and 5-year-old Helena with her endless curiosity, and I felt the overwhelming love I have for them multiply 1,000,000 times. I understood, in that moment of absolute clarity, that love is the only thing that's truly real. Everything else, money, status, worry, was just noise. You can choose. The presence communicated, now realizing it was more than just my grandmother. It was a vast, loving consciousness. But if you go back, it will be hard. There will be physical and emotional pain, and you will remember this piece, which will make it all the harder. I thought of my children. I thought of my husband, Raphael. I thought of all the moments I had yet to live, all the hugs I had yet to give. I'll go back, I decided. The pain came back like a devastating tsunami. I was slammed back into my body with a violence that made me want to scream. Every cell was on fire. I heard distant voices shouting, "We have a pulse. Sinus rhythm. She's back." I managed to open my eyes for a split second and saw the paramedic's face, tears of relief streaming down it. The ambulance clock read 7:02 p.m. 15 minutes. I had been clinically dead for 15 minutes. My recovery was long and difficult, but the real challenge wasn't the physical pain. It was remembering that indescribable peace and having to live in this noisy, heavy, confusing world. I'm not the same Barbara. How can I stress about deadlines when I know we are eternal beings? How can I hold a grudge when I understand we are all fighting invisible battles? I live differently now, slower, more consciously. I hug my children longer. I say I love you without fear, because I know love is the only currency that matters in this universe. And every night I give thanks. Thanks for this second chance, but also for the liberating certainty that when my time truly comes, there is absolutely nothing to fear. Death is not the terrifying end we're taught to dread. It is just a doorway, a transition, a journey home, and on the other side of that door, a light is waiting to remind us who we truly are, pure love, having a temporary human experience. This is my story. This is my deepest truth, and if it serves any purpose, let it be to remind you, live fully, love deeply, and know that what awaits us is more beautiful than we can ever begin to imagine. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing for more.